Talk and rock radio, where friends meet at the intersection of life, inspiration, and music. Here's your host, Rick Kern.
Welcome, everyone, to Talk and Rock Radio. My guest today is a singer, songwriter, guitarist, composer, and producer. From Marina Del Rey, California, welcome, Steve Postell. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing okay, man. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, man. Thanks for coming on board and doing the show with us today. You know, I think when I do these shows, I like to kick it off usually with a question like, how did you get started as a musician? You know, what was it that inspired you, and how did you go about making this your passion?
Well, let's try to make a long story short. And you'll hear this from other people. It's funny, Waddy tells the same story. The first time I saw someone holding the guitar, I was completely transfixed. My memory of it is I was about 5 years old, and the guy was playing guitar in Central Park. My mother and I were walking through, and I didn't want to leave. There's something about it, you know? And within a couple years of that, two things happened. One is they took me to a Segovia concert, and two is that I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan the first time they played. And really, that was it. There was there really wasn't ever anything else that I was going to do.
You just picked it up and went with it, right?
It infiltrated my DNA or something, you know, and then everything else that came along after it. You know, then when I got, you know, my father brought home the first Jimi Hendrix record, and you know, so it just kept blowing my mind, all this music. So I started playing when I was about 8, started taking lessons, and yeah, I never really considered doing anything else ever. It was never sort of, well, I could play music or I could be a fireman. Well, I think when I was 4, I wanted to be a fireman.
You're a classically trained guitarist, Steve. Where did you study?
I studied at, well, I had a teacher. So my parents, and I don't know where they found him. They found a teacher for me. I was begging to play guitar from when I was 5, and they were told I was, whether it was right or not, that my hands were too small. So finally, when I was 8, we got a teacher. His name was Richard Nieves, or Nieves, it was a Spanish name. And Richard was, what was lucky for me is Richard was a Broadway performer. He was a folk singer. He was a classical guitar player. He was a flamenco guitar player. So from day one, it was reading and classical and singing and chords. So always was one thing for me. And I really honor him for being that guy, because it could have been different if it had been a different teacher. But then I went to what was called Mannes Conservatoire of Music, at the time, Juilliard thought guitar was not a real instrument. Now, of course, they have a lovely guitar department. So the only choices were Manhattan School of Music and Mannes, and I wanted to study with a couple of people who were at Mannes. Now those two have joined, so Mannes and Manhattan School of Music are one.
Very cool. Very cool. And how many years were you there? Did you get your degree in it, or?
I was there for 3 years, and then I got offered a national tour of Man of La Mancha for what at the time was a lot of money for a young fellow like me. I think the lead was either Ed Ames or John Raitt. I forget. I worked with both of them. I'd have to remember which was the first one. So I went to the head of the school, Mannes, and I said, hey, I got this great gig. So it's a 3-month tour. So if we can just suspend my thing and then I'll come back and finish and get my degree. And he said, we don't do that for people. I said, well, you don't understand. They're going to pay me $1,000 a week. You know, he was probably making, $250 a week as the headmaster. I don't know.
Yeah.
And he frowned and he said, you'll have an incomplete for the rest of your life. I went, see you later, buddy.
Yeah.
So I said, I thought you were training us to be professional musicians, and I just got a job. And the only person who will ever see that incomplete is you. I'll see you later. So that was that.
Good for you, man. Good for you. And you, since you mentioned Broadway there, let's talk a little bit more about that. You've, not only did you do that tour, but you have written Broadway, you have performed in Broadway. Talk a little bit about some of your production work and everything that you did there.
Well, the Broadway thing was a total fluke. It never occurred to me to play a Broadway show. That's not why I was going to be classical and composer and a songwriter. But I was taking so Mannes, again, at the time, everyone was so strict back then. So Mannes, if it wasn't classical music, it didn't count. So I had to take sort of jazz and contemporary guitar lessons outside. And I was taking lessons with a guy named Myron Weiss in his little apartment on McDougal Street. And so I could already really play. I mean, I was doing, classical concerts and stuff, but I was learning from him real harmony and theory and all some other stuff. Back then, there weren't even phone machines, so if you got a call, you had to pick up the phone. So he picked up the phone. I wasn't really paying attention, and he goes, "Oh, wait a minute, hold on." And he looks at me, he goes, "Hey, you want to go on tour with Man of La Mancha?" I just turned it down. I went, "I guess so." So he said, "I got the perfect guy for you." So it was, and that turned into 7 years of musical theater. But again, total fluke. Great experience. Learned a lot, but and then I ended up co-writing a show that was off Broadway and played in a bunch of tours and Evita for 2 years with Patti LuPone and as the lead. So it was a great experience to be a young guy working right away, making a living like from day one.
Wow, that sounds pretty exciting, man. Really, really cool. At what point in your career, Steve, did you decide to start writing, your own stuff and then as well accompanying other artists?
Well, the writing thing was why I did it. So, for me, to this day, the Beatles, that was it. That was the beginning, the middle, and the end of what was great about music for me. I mean, I loved everything else, but there was nothing. So the idea that you could sing and play and write the song, that was the pinnacle for me. So I wrote my first song. I was about 13. It was actually, it's a funny story. So I wrote the song. It was called Mr. Sandman. And I was all excited. And I went into school and I played it for my friend. And he went, "I think that's the same melody as Mr. Tambourine Man." So I had done the George Harrison thing of, not intentionally, it was the exact same melody as Mr. Tambourine Man, which was in my subconscious there. So the first song I wrote was a total ripoff. But so I always did it. I always wrote, and then in school I was a classical guitar major and a composition minor, so I was already writing sort of classical and neoclassical pieces, and it all really just everything fed into each other really. In terms of accompanying other people, again, because I played in shows and in studios, I didn't really do a lot of accompanying other people just as a guitar player. I either was playing guitar in the show or in a studio or a session or for my own bands. And when I came out to LA many years later, which is about 2004, sort of reinvented myself, and I joined the studio with Steve Ferroni as the drummer from the Heartbreakers, and my friend John Jones, who's a Grammy Award-winning engineer. The three of us had the studio. And some people didn't know I was a songwriter. I would play in a session there. So I started getting called to, hey, can you come play for me? I'm singing a show. So very late in my career, I started going, yeah, this is fun. I'll just be the guitar player in this band. And I don't have to invite anyone. I don't have to sing. I don't have to write the songs. I can just, and I still really enjoy that. And there's certain artists, Eric Andersen and Dan Navarro I play for a lot, and where I'm just the guitar player guy with singing background vocals, and I like that.
Where are you most satisfied, Steve, in performing as a session studio player or live shows?
It's all about live shows for me.
Live shows, okay.
As a matter of fact, so I again started like sort of right out of the gate. I was doing sessions in the Broadway thing, and then about once every 3 weeks or so, I'd play a show like at the Bitter End or at Tramps or something like that, of original music. But most of the time, I was in the studio or on Broadway or something. And one night, I went to see Lonnie Mack, and I was watching the show, and it was all these grizzled, old, amazing guys playing this sort of blues, whatever, Americana, whatever it was, but deep. It was a deep thing. And they had their whiskey bottles, and they all had long gray beards and shit, and it was so beautiful and effortless, and I just remember I said, if I'm ever going to be able to do that, I can't just be in the studio all day, every day, because I'll never be able to do it. And I basically put a band together and not completely quit the studio thing, but went on the road. I went to Colorado and just started playing, and ended up with that band. It morphed from a band called Chain of Fools, which was a weekend warrior band, into Little Blue, which we played 230 gigs a year.
Great band.
And that's where I got the thing that a little of the thing I saw Lonnie Mack do, was like where you play so much in so many environments, and that's my favorite. That's my favorite thing, is to be on a stage playing music. I love the rest of it, but that's it.
What I've been saying for a long time, Steve, is that, validation is the fuel that feeds the passion for a performing artist. And, you have got such a great history of working with so many artists, man. I mean, there's one performance that I saw that you did in 1993 with, it was Lea Salonga.
Yeah.
On the Tonight Show, with Jay Leno, and of course, for those of you out there that don't know, she was the voice of Princess Jasmine in the movie Aladdin, and a great voice. She was also a Tony Award winner for Miss Saigon, and she's just incredible.
Incredible, Sam.
Is she still performing, Steve? Do you know?
Yeah, she does. She was really young when all that happened, and she got tapped. I think it was Atlantic Records, but I wouldn't swear to that. But anyway, big record deal. Maybe David Foster produced. I don't remember all the details, but as part of the record deal, there was this single, and I was the musical director, and we went around the country to these TV shows, Today shows kind of thing. We did Tonight Show, and so she had her mother with her because I think she was 18 or 19. Her mother would travel with us. I don't know this for a fact. I think she was already a big star in the Philippines, like really big, like Michael Jackson big there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they just went, we want to go home. I think she wanted to go home. Because I know she just kind of went back to the Philippines for a while. I think she was too young. It was too, maybe, so that trajectory rather, which was, let's make Lea Salonga the next, whatever, pop star, didn't happen. But she never stopped playing. She's got a huge amount of fans and one of the greatest natural singers I've ever heard.
My next guest is best known as the Tony Award-winning star of Miss Saigon and most recently the voice of Princess Jasmine in the movie Aladdin. She's here tonight performing a song from her new CD. Please welcome Lea Salonga.
Be still, my heart. Lately its mind is all its own. It would go far and wide just to be near you. Even the stars shine a bit bright, I've noticed, when you're close to me. Still it remains a mystery. Anyone who's seen us knows what's going on between us. It doesn't take a genius to read between the lines. And it's not just wishful thinking or only me who's dreaming. I know what these are symptoms of. We could be in love.
Don't open my eyes.
Ooh,
I'll wake from the spell I'm under. Makes me wonder why
ooh, tell me how
I could live without you now.
All my life I have dreamed of this, but I could not see your face. Don't ask why two such distant stars can fall right into place. And what about the laughter, the happy ever after, like voices of sweet angels calling out our names? Oh, and it's not just wishful thinking or only me who's dreaming. I know what these are symptoms of. We could be in love. Oh, it doesn't take a genius to know what these are symptoms of. We could be, ooh, we could be
Leanne. Wonderful. Thanks. Terrific. Be right back right after this. That was great.
Well, and I've got to say, your performance with her was superb. I mean, your harmony with her, man. I mean, how much time did you have to rehearse with her prior to doing that show?
Well, this is a good music business story, and since I won't mention any names, I can tell the whole story. So she did the single was a duet with another young guy. He was also, so she was in Miss Saigon, he was in another Broadway show. His manager was his stage mother, very aggressive, stage mom. So we did the Today Show. The first show we did was the Today Show. Her style of she was a really good interviewer, and so she would ask questions, many of which she knew the answer, but that's what you do, as you're probably doing today. So she asked the kid, so what are you doing now? And he went, oh, well, I'm in this Broadway show, and blah, 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 blah. We get backstage. I'm there with Leia's mom, Leia's manager, who brought me in, and then this kid and his mom. His mom storms in and starts swearing at the manager. Can we swear on this podcast?
Sure, I can edit it out.
I don't know. What the, how dare you not tell, whatever her name is, that he was in a Broadway show, which of course he did, but that was her style of, but just berating him and it's your job to inform them, and it looked so bad that he didn't know that my son is a star of a show, blah, blah. So he's very calm, old, real pro and the seasoned vet. He waits for her to finish. He turns to me and he goes, hey, Steve, you sing, right? I went, yeah. And he looked at the kid and he goes, you're fired.
Oh, wow.
So I had to learn the song in that day because we were doing another show the next day, and for the rest of the tour I sang the duet. So that's how that happened.
Fantastic. The biggest and most memorable validation moment in your career, Steve, are there any particular ones that pop out at you?
Well, sadly, one of them happened a week and a half ago. I was sitting, we were rehearsing, me and just a small rehearsal before, we had the full band, but just sometimes me, James Raymond, and David Crosby would just get together just to work stuff out, and then we'd show it to the band. And I was just playing something, it was on a song called Delta, I remember. James was playing piano, and David looked at me and goes, man, I love the way you play the guitar.
Never.
And that was, that was as good as it gets for me, because he meant it. And maybe some people don't, but he did. And that was so that was the most recent, and in a way the most profound. I've had a lot of wonderful experiences, and I've had a lot of really great people say really nice things to me. Carole King told me she loved the way I sang New York Minute, and those are great moments. But it's also a great moment when someone in the audience comes up to you who you don't know, who's not famous, and says, I love that song, or I love the way you play, or that's. So I've been fortunate that I've had people sort of validating that what I do has something to it for forever.
A recent event that has taken place with you, which I am so impressed with this band, is Immediate Family. You're the new kid with the group, and I love this band so much. I just love all the players. I mean, they're just the best. And I've talked to Leisz several times, and we're going to be doing a show, and we're going to be talking about Immediate Family in time as well. But how has joining that group, in this experience of playing with Immediate Family, how's that impacted your career, man?
Well, first of all, for anyone who doesn't know, the Immediate Family is myself with Waddy Wachtel, Danny Korchmar, Leland Sklar, and Russ Kunkel. And the four of them, I think they've probably played on 8,000 records, and that's not an exaggeration at all. It's probably
as a band called The Section, right? Yeah.
Well, The Section individually, and just, they're the, there's probably 10 guys who were the great session players on all the 70s and 80s and late 60s records, and they're 4 of those 10. There's not a lot of them who are in that club.
Right.
So we got together and formed this band, and it came out of a record deal that Danny was offered. A lot of people who just knew him as James Taylor's guitar player or Jackson Browne's guitar player. Danny was a tremendous songwriter as well as producer, and he wrote a lot of hit songs with these guys. Somebody's Baby with Jackson Browne, and Honey Don't Leave L.A., and Machine Gun Kelly with James Taylor, and with Don Henley, New York Minute, Dirty Laundry, All She Wants to Do Is Dance, and so on and so forth. So they offered him a record deal, this Japanese label. We went to Japan pre-Immediate Family with a different band, and they were already talking to him. They went and saw the thing where he would do new versions of these, like 11 of these, hit songs. So it just so happened that Leland, Russ, and on the third day Waddy were available, and those were his guys for 50 years. And he and I had been doing pre-production for this record, and we made that record. But it was pretty clear, like, oh wow, this is like a band. This is a band, and it's a band they always wanted to have. They got to be The Section without Waddy, and apparently had asked him to join at one point, but he said, like, you're playing instrumental music, it's not my thing. If you ever do a band with vocals, let me know. So this had been sort of a germ for many years, but for me personally, it's a incredible experience, because they were all big influences on me, all 4 of them, and not just, major. As a matter of fact, those 4 guys are part of the reason I wanted to not just be a songwriter and singer. I wanted to be able to do that too, and be able to be in a great band and back someone up if I needed to, and be a session player and play on records and so on. So it's been, we're in our six years now, and it gets better all the time. We have a new record coming out. We have a movie coming out, documentary. So I just want to keep expanding. Like, it's one of the things about Crosby that was so great. Never stopped. Anything I can. What will expand what I do? And being in the immediate family has been a big expanse. And on so many levels. One was that they're like, well, you're going to sing all the high parts and all the high stuff. You're going to sing the Don Henley tunes and the Jackson Browne tunes that are high. Daniel's sing the ones that are lower. And on the harmonies, you're going to be singing, G, A, B flats the whole night. So first thing was, I could get my voice like, I always keep it in shape, but not like in that kind of shape.
Right.
So got that together. And then just musically, like, all right, I want to hold my own. I'm up front. There's 3 guitar players, and so I upped my practice. In other words, everything I was doing, I upped it. It made me want to even, go further.
What really impresses me about you and Waddy and Cooch, Steve, is that all 3 of you guys are so good on guitar, but you complement each other so well in that band. It seems like everybody knows the chemistry is working so well with that band, just like it does for Lee and Russ. I always call it the heartbeat and the soul of the band. But you 3 guitar players, you guys, chemistry wise, it just seems like when to pull back, when to fill, when to lead, and you all do it equally so great. I mean, well, that's why you all are who you are, but it's wonderful to watch.
Well, you stepped on a lot of toes, and you broke a lot of hearts, and you rubbed up and down against a lot of people's body parts. You thought that loving would be good for you, all that loving and you still feel blue. You think about the life you missed, it's such a cruel twist. Such a cruel twist. Such a cruel, cruel twist. Such a cruel twist. Such a cruel, cruel twist. Yeah, the good and bad things you do gonna come back to you. Once you were sitting pretty and the world was at your command, but reality got gritty, and I don't think that you understand. You thought that time was your best friend, but you're further from the beginning than you are to the end. You think about the life you missed, such a cruel twist. Such a cruel twist. Such a cruel, cruel twist. Such a cruel twist. Such a cruel, cruel twist. The good and bad things you do gonna come back to you. What goes around comes around. You better use your head, 'cause what goes up will surely come down. But you never listen to a word I say. Whatever cards get dealt to you, but one thing you know the good and bad things you do gonna come back to you. And it'll be a cruel twist, such a cruel, cruel twist. A cruel twist, such a cruel, cruel twist. Yeah, the good and bad things you do will come back to you.
It's funny because that Keith Richards talks about that in the documentary about like
Did he?
have 3 guitar players who can do that. That comes from, I think, a couple things. One is that the big thing that Danny, Waddy, and I share is not that we all play the guitar, is that we honor songs. We're songwriters. We love songs. That's our Bible, is the art of songwriting. So the guitar is a tool to make a song sound good. So we're not trying to be the center of attention. We're trying to, how can we make this, what can I do on this instrument that makes the song sound good? So we all have that point of view. Not all guitar players do. A lot of guitar players want to, be the cat,
Well, Steve, don't you also, excuse me for interrupting, but don't you also think that that's probably one of the primary reasons why Carole and James took this group on the road to be the performing group behind them? Because of that reason, they knew texturally and everything that they could layer it. They could do everything they needed to do in the studio, but do it live also. And so it was. I find that to be so interesting.
100%. That's why everyone wanted these guys on the record. And now there's another thing that's just interesting about the 3 of us. Waddy is strictly a Les Paul player. Danny is sort of a Jaguar Telecaster guy, and I play in this band. I play a lot of guitars in this band. I'll play like Paul Reed Smith's or this G&L sort of humbucker guitar. So just sonically, before we play a note, we all sound different.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, we have 3 different styles. So Danny's one of the best rhythm guitar players there is. He learned his craft from listening to the James Brown records and all that stuff. So he's playing these fantastic inner rhythm parts. Waddy is one of the best rock guitar players where there's interspersing lines with power stuff, power chords and so on. And then I'm doing a lot of textural stuff. Like I'm basically a lot of times, not when I'm soloing of course, but I'm doing what a keyboard player would probably do. So it just doesn't have to be a lot of discussion. We have our place. And it fits together. And we listen. We're listening. Oh, he's playing that? I won't play that. Or he's playing that. This section needs to be stronger. I'm going to double it. Making those choices.
It's good, man. It's really good. It's fun to watch. It's great to listen, and as a musician myself, I can't get enough of you guys. I hope to get to see you live sometime. It'd be an absolute tremendous moment. I want you to tell the story about David Crosby and joining up with him. I saw it recently where you reposted it, and I'd like for you to tell the story. It's really good.
Again, I'll try to make what's a long story short. I mean, I've known David. I've known him for 30 years, and but knew him as a friend of his son James Raymond, the keyboard player, and his longtime guitar player in many bands, Jeff Pevar. So I was just their friend. And then either he heard me play or I got a benefit. Then we did a show together in Vancouver. I got an offer, I put it together, asked David. We did this great show up there. So little by little, more little music things would happen. We wrote together. I played a very complicated acoustic guitar part 2 records ago. That's when they went, oh, he really plays that acoustic stuff well. I was kind of had to use some of my classical chops to pull it off.
Right.
We wrote a song that's on the latest record. So, and we became friends. I would visit him when I went up there, and we'd sit around and play and so on. And then about maybe I'd have to look it up to see, maybe a year ago or more, I was at his house. He lived up north of Santa Barbara, beautiful, a nice ranch up there, and he said, "Well, I'm retiring from for performing. I'm still we should write and we'll make records, but my hands just don't work anymore. I can't get through a show. They tried to do some surgery, it didn't really take enough to." And I said again, and I wrote this all in the thing, but I said, well, sort of not as a joke exactly, but sort of offhand, well, if you ever want me to play your parts, just let me know. And I guess he didn't like being retired from performing, and he and James talked about it and said, maybe Steve really could do that. He called me up and said, look, I'm not guaranteeing that we'll go out and play. So, it's a lot of work because we don't know what's going to happen. But how would you feel about learning 8 or 10 of my songs, and we can see how it feels? Well, I would have done it anyway, the opportunity. So I went to his house. I filmed him playing. He could still get the guitar in his hands, and it was just not. So he could show me the songs, and I filmed it, and I learned probably 10 songs. But I mean, really learned, like this, every string. Like if he played the 3rd string on the end of 2, that's where I played it. I didn't. I've played his music before, but not with that kind of, specific note choices.
Mm-hmm.
We got together, played it for him, with him and me and James, and there's actually a video, I think, on James' Instagram of that first time when I said, well, and we played a song. And he went, I'm good with that. Let's do it. And right there and then he started calling who should be in the band, and how about Hutch on bass? And he called, hey Hutch, you want to be in? Yeah. How about, we'll use Stevie D on drums because he's been with me 30 years. So everything happened like sitting right there. Called everybody, and then I had this offer to put something together at Libero Theater, and it was the perfect timing, and there we went. We went with it. Started to go. Came up with a set list, and I learned all this. And I was singing the. Then we brought Chris Stills in. I thought. I said, are you good with? And he said, I've known him since he was a kid. He's great. I said, well, let's have him sing the Steve Stills parts. I'll sing the Graham parts. And off we went. And we got to dream about it. We got to rehearse. We didn't get to perform.
And when I first started talking to you several weeks ago, I was extremely excited about David Crosby and Friends band, and your opportunity. I've really got wrapped up in it, and ironically, I was sitting there working on some stuff for this show and everything one afternoon, and then it was like all of a sudden, I was texting somebody about a show that I had just done with some friends of mine, Ronstadt Review, really great players, and then I don't know if it was a steel guitar player or one of their players reached out to me and he said, "Oh no, Rick, and then I looked down and I'm going, oh my gosh. And then that's where it came up that Cross had just passed. And so it was just one of those moments where you just, oh man, this can't be true, but, and then that's what I tried calling you and then called Lee. But, anyway,
yeah, it was a beautiful experience to be doing it. I will always remember that instead of him being kind of bummed out that he was retired, he was really excited and he was thrilled and making big plans for it. The sad part is that not just that the band, we didn't get to do it, but people didn't get to hear it when it was a powerful set we were going to do.
With that lineup, Steve, of all these guys, I mean, Hutch and Stevie and James and Chris, and I'll tell you, man, it was such a great lineup. It would have been an incredible show, no doubt about that. But well, let's move on a little bit. I want to talk about you and James. You guys have collaborated for a lot now, a lot of great songs, and there's I want to play some of them here. Some clips from some that you've done in the studio. Really beautiful songs. Bad Weather. Talk a little bit about that song, man. The inspiration. Share some of your thoughts on that one and what it means to you.
That's one of the things that I like to do. I've been writing songs so many years. I like to sort of repurpose songs. Like I'll go into my vault and see if there's stuff that has something that I want to use or rewrite or redo, rather than just have it be something that's in the past and gone. Bad Weather I wrote. It's on my first record. It's very different sounding. But I listened to, I started playing, I hadn't played it in 30 years, and started playing it differently, and the way I play and sing now. And, where these things come from, sometimes, I do some teaching of songwriting, and I talk about all the different ways a song can start, and they can start from a title, from an idea, from a feeling, from a riff, from some chord changes, So, who knows? It was so long ago. Was it raining out? And I thought that the metaphor, of the actual rain and relationships that are kind of like that, that. Songwriting has a mysterious quality to it of where they come from. One by one, two by two, days go by and I'm still missing you. Know I'm supposed to be getting it together, but it's cold out here in all this bad weather. I don't mind thunder and lightning, but a love like ours surely more frightening. You seem like nothing, oh, it's gonna get better. If I keep standing out here in all this bad weather.
Tides will pull and the rain will fall. Ain't always dry up against this wall. She broke my heart. Oh, I know I let her. Now I gotta get out of all this bad weather.
So, but it's stylistically the way it is now. It's a very sort of organic blues kind of drop D tuning, fun to play, and on the record which that I put it on, which is not out. I made it right before COVID, released it in Japan, and some point in the next 6 months I'll release it here. But I have Tony Furtado, who's a brilliant
Great.
bluegrass banjo player. He's on it, playing dobro and banjo, and so it's got a real organic back porch blues kind of feel to it.
Nice. Sky Turns Black, your most recent song. Talk about that one a little bit, man.
That's my first post-COVID song, in terms of when I, sitting back at the end of the 2 years of not being able to go out and play and thinking about it. And during that, during the COVID time, I lost my mom, I lost some friends. So I was just sitting one night and really asking myself the question of, okay, what do you do when with this kind of with loss and we were coming out of this period where there was a lot of loss, not just of life, but our livelihoods and the way we used to live. And so it came out of that. And again, sometimes the imagery just comes into your head. And so the imagery of which not so much in California, but when you grow up in the East Coast, right before a rainstorm, sometimes in the middle of the day, it almost turns into night. The sky gets so dark, and so it's just the verses are about those feelings of difficult life experiences, and then the chorus is sort of well, I guess you can do this when these things happen, and it sort of answers it. And again, was not planned, but a lot of people commented on it. The time signature changes in the answer part, and I think that's one of the coolest things I've ever done. But it almost feels like I didn't do that. I went to answer the question, and the time signature changed.
It's been a long, long year. Been through some hard times. Said goodbye to friends. Had some trouble on my mind. I think I saw a light, a castle in the sky. I think I saw my life pass me by. What can you do when you lose your way and lose your point of view? What can you do when your heart is closed and your truth is no longer true? You can climb up a hill, you can float down a stream, you can pick up your guitar and believe in your dream. You can howl at the moon with the wind at your back and feel the first drops of rain when the sky turns black. I put my money in the bank. I built a house on the hill. I got myself a wife, but I don't have her still. I've sailed an ocean or two. I've been to Rome and Paris, France. And after all that I've been through, I may not get a second chance. What can you do when you lose your way and lose your point of view? What can you do when your heart is closed and your truth is no longer true? You can drink a fine wine, you can sing an old song, you can make your mistakes till you know right from wrong. You can howl at the moon with the wind at your back, feel the first drops of rain when the sky turns black. And it went into a waltz from a four thing. So I think I'm very happy, pleased with that song. I think it works.
Yeah, when I first noticed that, that signature change, and you do it a couple times in the song, and I thought, I really like this. This is really, it's different, but at the same time, it's the delineation between the storytelling and then all of a sudden you're going to the chorus, and the hook. The hook is so great, but I love it.
Thanks.
The song "Brother," I think I heard that you had written this one for a friend who was going through some tough time. Also,
he was dying.
It's an instrumental, but really a beautiful piece, man. And I'll end the show with this song, but
that was for a friend named Alan Kozlowski, and Alan, big influence on my life. He was a filmmaker, but also a musician. He loved, but more of a music. So he had a studio called PPO. It was a big post-production house, the biggest in LA for many years. Alan introduced me to Jackson Browne and some of the people I know in that world, Jeff Bridges. They were very, very, very close. And he loved another guy who loved the way I played the guitar. That's how we kind of got to know each other. And he was a guitar collector. And he was dying. He had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And so I wanted to write him something and play it for him while he was still alive. So I wrote him that song, and we sat at his foot of his bed and played it for him.
Wow. The before we wrap this show up, I'd like to ask you, Steve, are there any final thoughts or stories or anything that you'd like to share with us?
Well, it's a very reflective time for me, of course. You know, I mean, as we're talking, I'm looking at my phone, and the Crosby's tour manager's calling me. So that'll be the first call I made. It's a very it's a difficult time, but in that sense. But it's also, you know, these are the things that make you reflect a lot. I've been doing this a long time, and I feel very fortunate on a lot of levels. Very unfortunate to lost Crosby right before we were going to start touring, but very fortunate to have had the experiences I had with him, and all the experiences. I think, you know, it's a corny thing to say, but all of this is a constant reminder that you know, live fully every day. I mean, you don't know. And I realized that one of the reasons the Crosby thing happened so fast is both of us are like that. So from the minute he said, let's do this, within 20 minutes we had a band. Within 2 days we had a gig. Within, you know, we shared this sort of exuberance for all we know is what we got right now, and let's make the most out of it. And that's why being an artist is a very iffy proposition to begin with, in a way. But so you have to remind yourself of that every day, and I'll keep doing that, and I'll try to not just him, but keep the memory alive, keep the music alive in whatever small or big way that, you know, whatever ways I can. That's it.
Well said, Steve. This is the reason why I do this show, is to keep the memories alive. You know, it's not always happy, and, you know, it's all part of life, and it's all part of what we are all going through, you know, going to go through. And I want to thank you for sharing your talent, your poignant thoughts, and your passion. You know, you're one of the great ones, man. And thank you for being a part of my show, you know, and be willing to talk to us during the difficult time and everything. Yeah, life goes on, but, you know, it's still part of what we all have to go through, and, you know, we all do that. But thank you once again for taking your time to be on my show and to share your great history, great thoughts, and you know, we love you, man.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. It's very, very nice to be asked, and it's, you know, another reminder that we got to soldier on. You know, we got to, you know, my first thought was, well, I got to cancel the interview, you know, and then I was like, no, we go on. I got a gig Saturday night. Got to play it. You know, that's what we do.
Thank you for doing it.
Thanks for having me, man.
We'll talk again, okay?
Sounds good.
Take care, buddy.